Have you ever walked into a quiet room where someone you love is sitting, alone, still, and you suddenly feel that something's different? You can't explain it. Maybe their eyes don't light up the way they used to. Maybe they've been quieter lately. Or maybe they've just seemed like they're fading, slowly, quietly, almost like a candle burning lower each night. It's one of the hardest things in life, watching someone you care about age and change in ways that are hard to talk about. For many people, especially those caring for aging parents or partners, there comes a time when you start noticing small shifts. They might seem harmless at first, just a little forgetfulness, a skipped meal, more naps than usual. But those little signs can quietly signal something bigger, the body and mind preparing for their final chapter. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 subtle signs that often show up when an elderly person is nearing the end of life. These aren't meant to scare you. They're not a list of symptoms like you'd hear at a doctor's office. Instead, think of them as gentle signals, a kind of whisper from the body, telling us it's time to shift our focus from fixing to comforting, from doing to simply being present. Let's begin with the first and perhaps most visible sign: significant, unexplained weight loss. You know, it's easy to dismiss weight loss in older people as just part of aging. Maybe you've noticed that someone's clothes are hanging looser, or they've stopped finishing their meals. At first, it seems harmless. After all, appetites change, right? But here's the truth. When weight begins to drop without any real effort, it's almost always the body's way of saying something deeper is going on. It's not about dieting. It's not even always about illness. It's about a slow biological shift. As we age, especially in the last stages of life, the body becomes less efficient at absorbing nutrients. It takes more energy to process food, and sometimes it just doesn't have that energy to spare anymore. I once sat with a daughter who told me that her mother had always loved soup, tomato soup, every afternoon since she was in her 50s. But one day, her mother took just 2 spoonfuls and pushed the bowl away. That's when it began. Small refusals, meals unfinished, favorite snacks left untouched. Within a few months, her weight dropped dramatically. And she began to seem physically smaller, not just in body, but in presence. What's happening here isn't just about food. It's about the body conserving energy, slowing digestion, and redirecting whatever strength remains to the organs that matter most. Muscles begin to shrink. Fat stores are used up. And because the elderly often don't feel thirst or hunger as strongly, they simply stop eating as much, not out of will, but out of biology. Families sometimes try everything. Mom, eat just a little more. Dad, let me make your favorite dish. They bring smoothies, shakes, comfort food, but the results don't change. And here's the hard truth. Forcing food isn't always the answer. Sometimes it's more important to ask, what would bring comfort now? Rather than, how do we fix this? Offering easy-to-eat, nourishing bites, like soft fruits, warm broth, or even a spoonful of honey, can be more helpful than large meals. It's not about calories anymore. It's about care. And every bite taken with love is a way of saying, I'm here, I see you, you matter. If someone you love is losing weight and seems uninterested in food, take a gentle moment. Sit beside them, ask what they feel like eating, not what they should eat. And know that in this stage, presence often nourishes more than protein. Now let's talk about something less visible, but just as important: profound fatigue and weakness. We all get tired, but this is different. This isn't the kind of tired you feel after a long walk or a restless night. This is a bone-deep weariness that sleep doesn't fix. You might notice that simple things, standing up, brushing hair, walking to the kitchen, suddenly seem like climbing a mountain. There's a beautiful phrase I once heard. The body remembers what it used to carry, even when it can't carry it anymore. And for many elderly individuals, the burden of years, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, begins to show. Muscles lose their strength, the heart pumps more slowly, Oxygen doesn't circulate as it once did. You might see your loved one begin to nap more during the day, not out of boredom, but because their body simply needs it. You might notice that they start skipping their daily walk, or they no longer want to get dressed in the morning. It's not about laziness, it's about the body retreating, saving what little energy it has left. One man I spoke with told me about his father, once a sharp-dressed gentleman who shaved every day and polished his shoes. But in his final year, he often stayed in his robe until evening. His son said, "At first I thought he was giving up, but then I realized he was just tired in a way I couldn't understand." This kind of exhaustion can be deeply emotional too. When someone who used to be the life of the party starts withdrawing, canceling visits, or saying maybe later more often, it might not be about mood. It might be that they're just worn out. As caregivers or loved ones, it's easy to want to lift them up. We say, "Come on, let's go outside," or "Just try to get up for a bit." And sometimes that's okay. But often, the most compassionate choice is to let them rest. Create cozy spaces, bring warmth and quiet, hold their hand and let them know it's okay to slow down. Fatigue isn't failure. It's the body saying, "I'm reaching the end of this journey, and I need gentleness now." And when we understand that, we can stop fighting and start honoring that sacred transition with kindness. Let's continue. Now that we've taken a closer look at the physical changes like weight loss and deep fatigue, let's talk about something that strikes even closer to the heart: the mind. There's a moment many families never forget: the first time a parent forgets your name, or calls you by your siblings, or when someone who used to tell the best stories suddenly trails off mid-sentence, struggling to remember where they were going with their thought. At first, it feels like a slip-up, but over time, the pieces start falling away faster. Cognitive confusion and emotional withdrawal are some of the most misunderstood signs of decline, especially in the elderly. It's easy to chalk it up to aging or assume someone's just having an off day. But when these moments become more frequent, forgetting familiar faces, losing track of time, or simply not engaging like before, it may be a deeper signal that the brain is following the same path the body is on, winding down. The brain is incredibly sensitive to changes in blood flow, oxygen, and overall health. As the body slows, so does the mind. That doesn't mean your loved one isn't still there. In fact, they often are. But their ability to express themselves, stay connected in conversations, or even remember daily routines may begin to fade. There's a tender kind of heartbreak in seeing someone you love, someone who once gave advice, told jokes, shared memories, start to drift mentally. And yet, even in confusion, there is still connection. I remember visiting a woman in her late 80s. Her memory had been slipping for months. She no longer recognized her daughter by name and often seemed lost in thought. But one afternoon, her daughter began humming a lullaby from childhood. Without warning, the woman's eyes filled with tears, and she whispered the next line of the song. She couldn't remember what she had for lunch, but that melody, the emotion tied to it, was still inside her. That's the thing. Even as cognitive function fades, emotional memory often remains. Touch, music, scent, these things reach deeper than logic. So if someone seems withdrawn, don't assume they're gone. They may not be able to say what they feel, but they can still feel it. It's important to adjust our expectations. Long conversations may no longer be possible. They might forget names, lose their place in a sentence, or ask the same question over and over. But instead of correcting them or trying to bring them back into your world, try entering theirs. Sit beside them, listen to their stories, even if they're out of order. Respond with warmth, not frustration. This is where dignity lives, not in memory, but in the way we make someone feel. Sometimes, the confusion is paired with emotional withdrawal. Your loved one might stop joining family dinners. They may sit silently in a chair, eyes unfocused, not out of sadness, but because their mind is tired. Loud environments, busy conversations, even TV shows that once brought joy may now feel overwhelming. And here's something many people don't realize. This withdrawal is not rejection. It's self-preservation. The brain, already working overtime, can't process the same level of stimulation. So they retreat, not because they don't care, but because it's the only way they can stay grounded. This is where you, the caregiver, the spouse, the child, can offer the greatest gift: presence. Not solutions, not stimulation, just a calm voice, a soft blanket, a gentle hand on theirs. Sometimes, just being nearby is all they need to feel safe. Let's now move into a more physical but equally telling sign: repeated infections and slow healing. If someone you love used to bounce back quickly from a cold, but now seems to catch every illness that passes by, pay attention. A weakened immune system is one of the body's clearest signals that it's running out of reserves. And when that happens, even small infections become big challenges. I once heard a hospice nurse say, "The body stops fighting because it knows it needs to rest." That struck me deeply, because we spend our lives treating illness as the enemy, fighting colds, taking antibiotics, rushing to the ER. But when the immune system starts to quietly surrender, it's not always a crisis. Sometimes it's just the body saying, "I've done all I can." You might notice your loved one develops more frequent urinary tract infections, or that small bruises take weeks to fade. A scratch on the skin lingers longer than expected. Cuts reopen even without much activity. These are not random. They're part of a larger slowdown in the body's healing process. Here's what many don't realize. Older bodies often don't show illness the same way younger ones do. For instance, they may not spike a fever, or even complain about pain. Instead, the first signs of infection might be confusion, unusual tiredness, or simply not seeming like themselves. I knew a family who thought their grandmother was having memory problems, but it turned out she had a low-grade infection that was affecting her cognition. It took days to diagnose because she never complained of pain or discomfort. When the infection cleared, her clarity returned, briefly. But soon after, more infections followed. The body was simply no longer equipped to recover like it used to. At this stage, the goal may shift from curing to comforting. It's not about prolonging life at any cost. It's about making sure the life that remains is as peaceful and pain-free as possible. That might mean gently managing symptoms at home, avoiding stressful hospital visits, and focusing on quality of life over aggressive treatments. Warm baths, clean sheets, soft music, and kind conversation. These can mean more than another round of antibiotics. It's not giving up, it's tuning in. So if you're noticing infections that don't heal, or illnesses that return again and again, take it as a signal, not of defeat, but of transition. And use it as an opportunity to give the kind of care that matters most. The kind that says, "You don't have to fight anymore. You're safe. You're loved. I'm right here." As we move into the final sign, let's take a breath together. This isn't easy. Watching someone we love change, slowly then all at once, can feel like holding your breath every day, waiting for something you don't want to happen. But awareness is not fear. And what you're doing right now, watching, learning, preparing, this is an act of love. Now let's talk about one of the most profound physical indicators that someone may be entering their final stage: noticeable changes in breathing and circulation. If you've ever sat beside someone who's sleeping deeply, and you suddenly realize they've paused between breaths for just a little too long, you know how that moment can make your heart skip. That uneven breathing pattern, the quiet gasps, or the sudden shallow rhythm, these are not just random. They are gentle signs the body is shifting into a different state. In the later stages of life, breathing often becomes irregular. Sometimes it speeds up. Other times, it slows so much you wonder if they've stopped. One common pattern is called Cheney-Stokes respiration, a cycle where deep breaths are followed by a long pause, then a burst of breathing again. It can sound frightening if you're not familiar with it, but it's not painful. It's the brain and lungs slowly letting go of the need to regulate breath the way they used to. You might also notice that your loved one begins to breathe more through their mouth, or they struggle to catch their breath, even during light activities, like sitting up or talking. They might avoid lying flat because it makes breathing harder. That's why so many people in this stage prefer to rest in a recliner or propped up on pillows. It's simply more comfortable. And then there's the change in circulation. The hands and feet may start to feel cold to the touch. The skin can turn pale, bluish, or mottled, especially around the fingers, toes, or lips. This isn't because the room is cold. It's because the heart, which once sent blood rushing through every part of the body, is now focusing only on the most vital organs. It's the body's quiet way of conserving energy, keeping the lights on in the places that matter most. These signs can be hard to witness. They feel final. They are. But they're also peaceful in their own way. They're the body's built-in wisdom, guiding the person we love through a natural, gentle transition. It's not always dramatic. In fact, most of the time, it's soft, a slowing down, a turning inward. As caregivers, we can offer small comforts: a cool cloth on the forehead, soft blankets that don't constrict, sips of water if they're still able, or even just a quiet room filled with calm. Some families use essential oils like lavender or soft instrumental music. Others simply sit beside the bed, holding a hand, saying nothing at all. That presence, quiet, grounded, loving, means more than words. There's a temptation in these moments to panic, to call for help, to wonder if something should be done. And yes, if something seems truly distressing or painful, always speak to a healthcare provider. But if your loved one is already under palliative or hospice care, it may be that the kindest response is simply to sit still. Breathe with them. Let the moment unfold. Because in the end, this journey isn't about extending life at any cost. It's about enhancing the life that remains. And often, that means replacing interventions with presence, replacing worry with warmth, replacing fear with love. Now, as we come to the close of this video, let's gently revisit what we've talked about, not with cold facts, but with understanding hearts. We talked about how significant, unexplained weight loss isn't just about shrinking bodies. It's about a body signaling its quiet goodbye. We explored deep fatigue, the kind of tiredness that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from a soul that's winding down after a lifetime of motion. We looked at how the mind begins to loosen its grip, forgetting names, withdrawing emotionally, sometimes fading in and out like an old radio signal. We saw how infections come more frequently, healing slows, and the body starts conserving its energy instead of fighting. And finally, we witnessed how the rhythm of breath and the color of skin can gently whisper that the body is nearing the end of its journey. None of these signs should be taken alone, and not everyone will experience all of them. But if you're noticing more than one of these in someone close to you, it might be time to shift your focus. Not to fixing, but to feeling. Not to holding on tighter, but to holding more gently. Because the truth is, the end of life doesn't have to be frightening. It can be sacred. It can be filled with music, with stories, with touch, with forgiveness, with laughter even, with the kind of connection that words can't describe. If you're on this path now, if someone you love is showing these signs, please know this: you are not alone, and neither are they. This isn't a failure. It's a chapter, one that every human must one day enter. And while we can't stop it, we can walk through it with grace. You may not be able to fix their appetite or bring back their strength, but you can wrap them in a warm blanket, play their favorite song, bring them their favorite scent, and remind them again and again that they are loved, they are safe, and they will never be forgotten. If this video spoke to your heart today, I'd love for you to leave a comment below. Share one thing that stood out to you, or one way you found peace in caring for someone nearing life's end. Your voice may help someone else feel less alone. And if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe so we can continue sharing content that supports and uplifts you through life's most tender moments. Here's to being present, to honoring life in every stage, and to remembering that even in goodbye, there is beauty. You are strong, you are kind, and you are not alone. Thank you for watching.